Alrighty, so let's learn about some sewing basics. So I've got my pattern pieces cut out. I have the areas that I want to add some detail on. So you'll see that I have two exact replicas of the same thing. That's my front and my back. So I'm just going to get rid of the back while I'm working on the front. So right here we have a needle. It is sharp, so you don't want to go ham with it. And then this is called the eye of the needle. It looks like a little eye. And that's where we want to thread into. This is called a skein, and this is a skein of embroidery thread. Now, it's important that we pull from the skein in the same way so that we don't just create a little tangled mess. So you'll see its little tail right here. And I want to kind of hold on. And I'm only going to take a piece of string that's about 1.5 feet. Okay, I'm going to grab my scissors and cut that loose. So now I've got my thread end and my eye, and I'm going to want to thread that straight through. Now, sometimes I will put the edge of the thread in my mouth to get all the different strands to stick together so that I can get that threaded. So it's going through the eye. I want to give it a little bit of a tail so that I don't lose it when I'm sewing. And then I need to knot the other end. So to knot the other end, I'm going to twist the thread around my finger, kind of roll it back and forth, and then I pull that tight. Okay, so again, I twist it around my finger, roll it off my finger, and then pull that tight. Okay. If that doesn't work, you can go the old-fashioned way. Another way to tie a knot, just to loop-de-loop and tie. Now the knot's going to make it to where it doesn't, the string doesn't just pull straight out of the felt. So I'm using black thread because I want to try to hide my stitches within the black of the eyeball that I'm putting in here. And I want my knot to be on the side that I won't see. So I'm going to start with my first little eyeball, and I'm going through the back. So the first thing I need to pierce through is the orange layer of felt. Okay, then I want to pierce through the white and then onto the black. Oops. Okay, so I've got all 3 pieces of felt coming through this little stitch right here. Pull my thread all the way through. The knot's caught on the back now. And then I need to pierce it through again. Sometimes I'll use the table to help get a little friction going there. And ta-da, now my eye's nice and down. So I'm going to do the same thing for the opposite eye. And I want him to look kind of goofy, so I made his eyes 2 different sizes. Again, I'm piercing through all 3 layers. All 3 layers of felt. If I felt like the white of his eye was getting a little saggy, I could go in with some white thread if I wanted to hide it, or some darker thread if I wanted to have like a nice contrast. So I get pulled through his little eye. All right, perfect. And now I want to add a little bit of a nose and a mouth. So I'm going to do that with stitching. I'm going to lightly sketch on about where I want his mouth to be with a pencil. I'm going to stitch over the top of that. And then he's going to be kind of like a reptile, so I'm going to give him a little bit of a nose too. So now, trying to start my needle, the start of that, okay? So my needle's up and in. And then this stitch is going to represent his little nostril. Oops, if you get caught up like that, just kind of tug him free. Okay. So we get his little nostril on there, and then we're going to go over to the other side. Do the same thing. He's got a little reptile nose going on. Now, he's my little messy monster, so he's going to have like an unamused expression, so that straight across face. When I go to stitch this on, I want to try to make sure that my stitches are the same width and that I have the same space in between them. Okay, so I'm going to put my stitch in, and I'm looking at stitches, I don't know, not super big. Okay, so then I'm kind of poking the needle around to see how far apart I want my stitches. I think I'm going to go with that. And I'm trying to stay on that straight line. Again, I'm trying to make my stitches the same length. Okay, I'm going to come back up. Too close. Okay, I'm going to come here. Straight across. Through. And straight across. Now let's say I want to add some ears for him. Okay, so a lot of us have ears that we're choosing to add on. So for the ears, they're just one level of thickness. So that's going to give us the opportunity to just stitch it straight onto the back side of our piece of felt. So that way when we put the two sides together, we've got like an exact little replica going on. So I've got one of his little ears. Maybe that's too big. I don't really like that. So I've got one little ear, and then his other ear is going to be different, you know, because he's a little weirdo. So then his second ear is going to look like that. So I'm going to stay with my thread color that I have right now. And I'm going to position that where I want it. And I want my stitches to stay on the back side still. And I'm going to use black thread just because it's going to be nice and contrasting. So I've got my stitch in there. I'm keeping them a uniform width, so I'm not spacing them out any farther. Okay, and I'm just stitching those on. So this way, when I go to put my two pieces together, my front and my back, my little ears are going to hang out from that. Okay, so that'll only need about 2 stitches, and I want to keep that pretty regulation width with how I'm going to stitch the front and back together. Okay, I'm going to hop over and do that other ear. He's a cute little guy. He's got a fun little personality. You're fine. Sure. Yeah. Okay, and then to tie this off, I need to put a knot in the back. Now, I wouldn't want to put a knot in the front because then everyone will see my little moves there. So I'm going to turn this over, thread my needle through somewhere, and then just do the classic tie a knot. Okay, those threads will all stay together. I'll use my scissors to cut that thread off and trim any other threads that need it. And now I'm ready to attach my back to my front.